Okay, it looks like we do have some new documents, but we also don't have some new documents. This case is weird, guys. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Now, I know that yesterday, the 24th, was the deadline for Brian Kohberger to give his alibi in the Idaho 4 case. And honestly, I never expected for him to give his alibi. He stood silent instead of making any sort of plea of guilty or not guilty or anything whatsoever. He chose to stand silent, and that would only make sense for him to continue to stand silent. So in these new documents, he is not giving anything. He's just alluding to things. Now, I will say that I did not know that the document was up because if you look at the website, everything past the defendant's second supplemental request that was filed on the 12th is still missing. And earlier this morning, the website was completely down. It's been doing this back and forth for, I don't know, well over a week now. Probably like almost 2 weeks now. And if you notice, it's the only case that has missing documentation. Like there's several different cases on this website. And if you go through all of them, I mean, there's stuff that's still like happening on some of these. And only the Idaho 4 case has documentation missing whenever these server issues happen. And that's why a lot of people are questioning what's going on, because there's no reason. They had this is the exact same issue that we had last week. It was gone and it would come back and all of the newer documents would be missing. So that's why I hadn't said anything about the alibi document. And I received an email from a viewer, shout out to you. And then she also stated that it was going around on Twitter. So what we're going to do, since everything is still missing, is we're going to go through this one that was posted by Brian Enton. I don't know, probably like 30 minutes ago, 30 minutes prior to my recording of this. And I've got to do this one fairly quickly because I'm on my little break for work. So we're going to go ahead and read over this. This is basically Brian Kohberger's version of standing silent on having to give over his alibi. Okay. Notice of defendant's response to state's alibi demand. Comes now Brian C. Kohberger by and through his attorney of record Ann C. Taylor, public defender, and hereby files notice in response to the demand for alibi and in compliance with Idaho Code 19-519 and Idaho Criminal Rule 12.1. Mr. Kohberger notes that Idaho Code 19-5194 preserves his constitutional right to silence as well as to testify on his own behalf. Mr. Kohberger stands firm on his constitutional right as well as the statutory recognition of that right. Noteworthy is that an alibi indicates a line of proof by which the defendant attempts to show that he could not have committed the crime of which he is accused because he was elsewhere at the time. A defendant's denial of the charges against him does not constitute an alibi, but as soon as he offers evidence that he was at some place other than where the crime of which he is charged was committed, he is raising the alibi defense. Mr. Kohberger's defense team continues investigating and preparing his case. What? Okay, again, I don't understand. Both sides have issues with checking their spelling. I don't understand why we're seeing this from both ends. They don't know how to run the spell check through these things. No one double checks this stuff. Like, come on, y'all look so immature and like uneducated making these mistakes. Evidence corroborating Mr. Kohberger being at a location other than the King Road address will be disclosed pursuant to discovery and evidentiary rules as well as his statutory requirements. It is anticipated this evidence may be offered by way of cross-examination of witnesses produced by the state as well as calling expert witnesses. Okay, so this sounds like to me Let me reread this. Evidence corroborating Mr. Kohberger being at a location other than the King Road address will be disclosed pursuant to discovery and evidentiary rules as well as statutory requirements. So this is claiming that he has proof of some sort that he was at a completely different location, and that evidence is going to come out whenever the witness that is produced by the state is cross-examined. Am I reading that right? Am I assuming that correctly? Are y'all getting the same thing from this? Like, I understand that it is on the state, it's on the prosecution to prove their case. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt whatsoever that the person they are accusing of the crime is the only person that could have committed the crime. Now, while I would probably be trying to fight for my life and defend myself in any and every way possible by speaking every bit of truth that I had inside of me if I was truly innocent, this man has also studied criminal stuff for like a decade. So I'm going to assume that with him and Ann Taylor like working together and brainstorming on how to do this, maybe this is just the best tactical move that could be made, because they know beyond a reasonable doubt themselves that the evidence already shows that he's not the guy, and they're just waiting for it to have to be presented correctly at trial. I don't know. Because I know that if he released an alibi, it would be torn apart the same way every bit of this case has been torn apart, and rightfully so. But this verbiage to me in this last paragraph means that the discovery and the evidence and the state's witnesses themselves, upon their own cross-examination by the defense side, is going to prove that Brian Kohberger is innocent. Well, then I guess we're just going to have to see what happens come trial, because I mean, the only person that I can think of that the state would be trying to call as a witness would be Dylan, because we've only heard of the defense trying to call Bethany, and then Enon Harsh is going around claiming that he was also called in to be a witness or testify during the preliminaries by the defense. And then it was retracted because, all the grand jury stuff happened. But I don't know if he's going to end up being subpoenaed again for the actual trial in October. And if he is, he sure hasn't been subpoenaed yet, because he's going and doing interviews and like talking about stuff. So I don't know how that whole situation is going to go. And I don't know who else could they possibly call, the state could call as a witness besides Dylan and Bethany, if they were the only two that were supposed to have been at the house at the time of the attacks. So there's no telling really what kind of like surprises and true jack in the boxes are going to end up popping up out of nowhere whenever this all comes to trial and everything has to come out in the open. So I wanted to check with the portal just one more time, and it looks as if this is actually on here now and all of the documents are back. Just going to scan through just to make sure that what we had was legit. Yep. It's all legit. So, yeah, he's standing silent, and he is basically claiming, from how I'm understanding this, that the discovery and the evidence, along with the witnesses that are going to be called by the state, once those things are cross-examined and the real truth comes out of people, that's whenever he's claiming his alibi will be then presented, because the evidence itself presents his alibi. That's what I'm getting from this. But again, and again, and again, what are you guys' thoughts? Let me know. See y'all.